Futures trading involves risk and is not suitable for all investors. Content provided in this segment is meant for educational purposes and is not a solicitation to buy or sell commodities.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Grain Feed brought to you by EverAg. This is your weekly news feed for all things grain and all things feed. Each week we bring you updates on the markets with unique perspectives from an amazing team of analysts with the intention of helping dairy and livestock producers. As a risk, I'm your host, Jim Matthews, reporting from Chicago on a Wednesday afternoon. And joining me today from Wichita, Kansas, Director of Feed Foundations, Mr. Jake Kingsley. And from Platteville, Wisconsin, Senior Director of Grain Risk, Miss Britt O'Connell. Team, how are we today?
Hard to be bad on a beautiful day like this.
Is it a beautiful day, Britt? We've got pretty decent rain coming through Chicago. You guys getting it up there?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like we live in a rainforest. It rains every day. It's 90 degrees. There's 110% humidity. Yeah.
Yeah, which is totally normal because we live in the Midwest. So that's how it's supposed to be.
Certainly better than the alternative in a few months.
Right. Yeah. And it has been a really interesting summer of anytime we do see 95 degrees, we've had like rain right before it. And then it goes to 95 degrees, and then that ends with more rain. Then it goes back to 80s, and it's just been kind of riding this wave of we're getting plenty of rain and some stretches of 90s here. Feels pretty good.
If this gig doesn't work out for you, Jim, you should think about weather.
Yeah. You know what? Because it's okay to be wrong in weather.
It is.
If you're as wrong as much as I am, I do think at the end of the day, and no disrespect to all of our hardworking weathermen and weatherwomen out there, no disrespect. It's a very difficult job, and we respect you. Jake, speaking of people that have a difficult job, but we respect very much, how are you?
Doing pretty good. It's kind of like a rainforest down here, too, but that's because the corn and bean crop are just gigantic.
Oh, I thought you meant your basement, Jake. I thought you meant the basement is the rainforest.
I guess it is. Sometimes I forget to look behind me.
That's fair. Well, things are always interesting here on the Grain Feed, but before we dive into how this weather is impacting our markets page, if you would kindly timestamp the broadcast, it is Wednesday afternoon. It is about 3:50 Chicago time. We had corn managing to close up just a smidgen. We had D's corn up 1 1/4 cents at 4.12 1/4. We had Novi beans breaking that $10 barrier, was down 13 3/4 cents at 9.95 3/4, seeing that 9 handle for Novi beans. We had Dees meal closed down $2 per ton at 274.50, and Dees oil was down 67 points at 56.11. So really the whole soy complex in the red today, and at least corn trying to hang in there as we just about wrap up the month of July here in the next trading day or so. And that all being said, Britt O'Connell, we were talking about the weather here at the start of the show, which then kind of leads into some of the crop conditions we've had and how those crops are impacted. What's your take, Britt? What have we been seeing lately here in the grain and feed markets from your view?
I mean, we continue to see just excellent crop condition scores across the board. We did lose 1 point this week in corn, but certainly nothing to get worked up about. I mean, we are in the time of year where historically we do start to see crop condition scores slide a little bit as corn goes through the natural maturation process, which of course ends in death. So this is normal.
Which of course leads to death.
Yeah, which is the natural maturation process that we're all on. So 1 point drop is certainly nothing to get worked up about. However, I thought it was super interesting that soybeans grabbed a 2 point improvement this week, which is worth noting because as we move into August, we all know that that is the most critical month, one could argue, for soybeans and where they can kind of be made or lost from a yield perspective. So the market seems very convicted that we're going to have a big crop. It's really just a matter of how big is this thing going to be?
As we look at the corn market holding, at least for today, after a multi-day slide, December futures managing to hold this like 410, 412-ish, which is really, we're pushing like 2-week lows, let's say. But yeah, Britt, that bean chart is super interesting to watch. Novi beans was kind of an ugly close today. I mean, in terms of that, Novi Bean candle was a pretty decent candle there, closing on the lows, pretty much at the lowest levels we've seen since planting was trying to get going in that somewhat delayed April period that kind of elevated prices there for a bit. So really interesting to note that then bean conditions were up a little bit. We have a tighter soybean balance sheet than we do corn, and corn is not a super tight balance sheet, but it's not super loose balance sheet. And we're starting to see some initial estimates here in terms of corn yield. I think the few that we saw from private analysts today were rather substantial. I won't say the numbers because I don't want Jake to start getting upset down in the rainforest, but they were of size, if you will. So are we going to potentially see an uptick in yields, Britt, on this August WASDE report?
Jake said earlier that soybeans in Kansas look like beach balls. So if that's any indicator at all, we have got to be taking this soybean yield higher, right? But no, in all seriousness, there's some pretty wildly big numbers being thrown out there, and nobody's going to say the number, but there's some big numbers. And I think the general expectation of the trade is we're going to see something of an increase in this August 12th WASDE report. To what degree, I think, is hard to debate because it's always what is the USDA going to come out with versus where are we going to ultimately land? And we all know the discussion around like, hey, historically, when we have these kind of crop condition scores, we've realized a 4 to 5% increase in yield over trend line, which does push the number towards a 190-ish. But I don't think the USDA is going to go there right away. They're not going to fulfill all Jake's dreams in one fell swoop. So, probably 185-ish feels like a place where, and we'll get official estimates, but I feel like that's a place the trade is probably eyeing up in maybe an initial yield increase.
Yeah, and I think to your point there, Britt, what is the market going to trade versus what is the USDA actually going to give us? Are they going to get that aggressive on the August report? Seems a little bit early to do so. And also, Britt, we know that there are still risks to each of these crops. And we are hearing reports here and there of, hold on a second, guys, that, yeah, this is a substantial crop. It's not perfect, though. We've had too much moisture in some areas here. Like in some spots, you could argue this thing, it all happened at once with almost any real opportunity to truly develop properly. So not widespread, of course, but it's not truly perfect. There are some crop development issues here and there, correct?
Yeah, and I think what we're really going to be paying attention to in the next few weeks is while we've had a beautiful, growing season, we've also had the right kind of conditions for disease pressure. As we get deeper into the growing season here, that's going to start to be something we eye up more with both corn and soybeans. We've had these hot days, moisture on a regular basis, high humidity. You just created this kind of perfect scenario potentially for diseases in both corn and soybeans. So I think that'll be something we also are starting to weigh and measure out. It's not something often that the market can wrap its hands around real immediately, but long term, as we think about final yield, those are the sort of things that we have to consider.
Gotcha. Good deal. Okay, we'll be paying attention to those, especially as we move into really just being a couple weeks away from that August WASDE report. And then, Jake, let's turn it over to you, buddy, because now that we are entering August here, it starts, markets wondering where are the lows, when are the lows going to be achieved. Folks are assuming we have not hit them yet in terms of December corn futures, but how about the basis side of this thing? Are we starting to see basis give way as well as we start to come down and test a little bit closer to $4 corn?
Yeah, we finally started to see basis gain a little bit of traction over the last week or so. I'm not sure exactly the cause of it, if we've started to see a little farmer selling into the commercial pipeline, or if these commercial players are starting to take somewhat of speculative positions, knowing that the crop in front of them is quite sizable. We've also had some markets, particularly those heading south and maybe a little bit to the southwest, that are going to see some reductions in rail freight costs, which is a first for me but some of these reductions are going to be fairly sizable. So that certainly helps give some of those commercial players a little bit of confidence in what their shipping lanes may look like this fall. Not a tremendous breakdown in price week over week necessarily, but down 5, 10, maybe even 15 cents from where we were just 2 weeks ago. I'm starting to approach some of the low numbers that we saw last year. Those have been some of the conversations we've had with folks about this is the first place to step in and start to get some basis done for the next year. But also we could push below those values before this is all said and done. So being aggressive on our bids, trying to get some things done early. And also if we get futures to break lower than where they're at now, you're starting to get both basis and futures to a spot where it's hard not to buy some of your physical feed for the next year at these levels. They're very palatable values given what margins on the dairy look like right now. So movement there, not a ton of movement on the protein side today, but we've been under pressure on that side for quite a while. Very attractive prices, both basis and futures, in most all protein commodities for quite a while.
On the protein side, for December meal futures kind of breaking that 280 per ton threshold, as we've noted before on the show. You take the December contract specifically and take that back over, a 10-year time frame. We do trade sub 280 meal. We trade it. It's just a debate of how long do you maintain prices within this threshold before the end user really does start picking this back up in a big way, whether that's domestic or that export market. So really strong opportunities to own protein. And of course, on both corn and beans, right? We're seeing from a purchasing side, at least for corn, as we kind of sit here and wonder what we do with the August WASDE. If you'd rather not wonder and manage some risk, obviously step in and do that on these lows, but also some opportunities to set some targets for some purchases. And of course, on the sell side of this thing, you've got some opportunities here to protect some of these sales you've already committed to as we do break down here, because it's going to be a really interesting stretch. We never know. Britt, as you pointed out, this is a key development stage here for soybeans. It still has risk on the table for that bean market. And then corn, it's not over till it's over. We pollinated the bulk of the crop here across the, key areas of the Midwest, but it's just not over quite yet. So there's still plenty of upside that we have to really monitor here. And I think as we enter that WASDE report, we've had many write-ins. I think if you a few call-ins page, people call in and ask questions, and they send us emails and they want to know things. And one of them is, what do Jake and Britt think that the actual yield number will be on that August report? That's a big one that people are asking. So to borrow from Phil and Kathleen with those bold predictions, Britt, let's start with you. Bold prediction. What is the USDA's number going to be on the August WASDE? We're not calling for a final yield. We're just calling for that August WASDE number, Britt. Corn and beans. What do you think?
184.6.
Wowie wow. How about beans?
Ooh, I don't know if they touch it.
Oh my. Okay, you know what? I think that's fair. It's a little early. We don't need to touch beans right now. It's a little early.
Yeah, it's a little early. They're hard to gauge.
Yeah.
You just say they don't touch it.
Yeah. Hey, you don't have to touch it. So we've got 184.6 corn. We're going to stick with 50. Is it 52.5 beans? 52.5 bean yield. It's a big corn number. Jake, August WASDE, what's the USDA's number? What's your bold prediction?
It's a big number. Get your big pen out. Everybody thinks that I'm wild, but I'm probably going to come in on the low end of the range for the company here. Call it 183 flat.
183 flat for corn yield. He's a wild guy. He's a wild and crazy guy. 183. How about beans?
Beach ball size soybeans. What kind of yield is that?
First of all, that's not what I said. Second of all, I think we're coming in at a 54 bushel bean yield.
Oh!
That's a big kid bean number. That's a big kid bean number.
Dagger. to bean prices.
Wait till you see the test weight.
All right. So everyone who called and wrote in, they didn't ask about me, but I'm just going to go ahead and throw a number out there. I'm going to say 183 and a half corn and 53 on beans. 183 and a half and 53 bushels per acre on beans. Those are going to be my bold.
You short beans, Jim? You trying to push this market around?
You know what? I wish I was after today. I wish I was. I was one thinking $10 would give us a little bit more of a support level there for Novi beans. But again, as we said, I'm not always right. Maybe I have a different career in front of me. We'll see what happens. But in the meantime, Britt, thanks for joining the show. Great to have you back.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure. Jake, great to have you here as well, joining us from the rainforest. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Good to be here.
And we'd also like to thank the Everag Insights crew for their support. Big thanks to Paige for production magic. Thank you to the viewers for watching the Grain Feed. Contact information is on the screen. We greatly appreciate your feedback. That's all for today. We'll see you next time on the Grain Feed.